Very good morning to you all. The topic for today is bipolar affective disorder. So this class is supposed to be taken by Dr. Bhagavan, but last minute he had to take leave for some other reason. So I'm taking this class for you. So bipolar affective disorder was a 4-mark question in one of your question papers. So it's basically a mood disorder, and as the name suggests, there are two poles in it. One is the happier pole and the other one is the sad pole. The happier pole is mania and the sad pole is depression. So before going to details, mood is a pervasive, sustained feeling tone that is experienced internally, and it influences a person's behavior and the perception of the world. It's a subjective feeling. Affect is an outward expression of the inner emotional state. Okay, so bipolar disorder, as the name suggests, there are two poles. One is the happier pole, you have the mania. On the depressive pole, you have depression or major depressive disorder. So the reason for taking this class before the depression is that you should understand that bipolar affective disorder, depression is a component of bipolar affective disorder, but depression is entirely different from bipolar disorder. Okay, that you label it as unipolar depression or a recurrent depressive disorder or major depressive disorder. But in case of bipolar disorder, you have also episodes of depression, but they are a part of bipolar disorder. So we'll come into the details later on. So manic phase is characterized by intense happiness. Patient is happy out of no reason. So we'll be happy also, but we won't be happy without a reason, right? So in case of mania, the patient is very happy without any reason. So also there will be high levels of energy wherein the patient will not get tired even after hours of exhaustion. And they'll have higher sense of self-esteem. So they'll believe themselves, and the belief on themselves is so intense that they think they can do anything. And because it is a high energy increases, so both the mental energy increases and the physical energy increases. So because the mental energy increases, the thoughts will be so fast. And one thought comes after the other very fastly. And thought and speech go hand in hand. So as they think fast, they speak fast. And they have impulsive behavior and irritability. So not always they're happy, but even little bit of provocation, they get so irritable, they can get very aggressive. On the depressive phase, on the dysphoric side, you have depression. It is characterized by high energy. There will be low levels of energy in depression. Patient with mania has high self-esteem, and patient with depression has very low self-esteem. And we have racing thoughts, and there is retarded thinking in depression. And so there will be other thoughts like suicidal thoughts, helplessness, loss of interest, and low energy levels in depression. So we have mania, depression, hypomania, and mixed episodes. Right, mania is an episode of abnormally elevated mood, plus there are other symptoms also. Depression, you have mood, the loss of interest, easy irritability, easy fatigability, they come under, and other set of symptoms which come under depression. There is an entity called hypomania wherein there are symptoms of mania, that is mood is elevated, but the symptoms are not so severe to classify as mania. There are mixed episodes wherein there are symptoms of mania and depression together existing in a single episode. So to classify it as bipolar, you have an episode of depression which has to fulfill the criteria of an ICD-10 or 11 criteria of depression. The core symptoms of depression are dull sadness, loss of interest in previously enjoyable activities, and easy fatigability or lack of energy. These are the core symptoms of depression. And in addition to this core symptom, there should be other symptoms like poor self-esteem, feelings of guilt, suicidal thoughts, or reduced ability to concentrate, psychomotor agitation or retardation, And sleep symptoms like maybe increased sleepiness or reduced sleep, or appetite symptoms, something like increased food intake or reduced food intake. So based on this, there should be 2 or more symptoms, 4 symptoms to categorize it as depression. The symptoms should be present for at least 2 weeks. These are ICD-11 or ICD-10 criteria for depression. For a manic episode, there should be an elated, expansive, or irritable mood for at least 1 week. Or if at all the mood is so elated, so expansive, and so irritable that if it is present for even a single day that needs hospitalization, the patient can be labeled as mania. There should be at least 3 of the following symptoms like increased activity, increased speech, flight of ideas, loss of social inhibitions, reduced need for sleep, elated self-esteem, distractibility and reckless behavior, and increased sexual energy or uncritical sexual behavior. So based on this, you have bipolar 1, bipolar 2 and cyclothymic disorder, and bipolar disorder not otherwise specified. In bipolar disorder, there should be 1 episode of mania and 1 episode of depression. So in bipolar 2 disorder, there won't be episode of mania, but there will be episodes of hypomania and depression that comes under bipolar 2. The cyclothymic disorder, wherein there is for about 2 years, there will be alternating episodes of hypomania and depression. So there will be multiple episodes of hypomania and depression that comes under cyclothymic. Okay, so these will be your MCQ questions. Bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. So major differences: hypomanic episode or a manic episode. Manic episode in bipolar 1 disorder along with major depressive disorder. In bipolar 2, you have hypomania along with major depressive disorder. So cyclothymia is 2 years of frequently occurring hypomanic symptoms and depressive symptoms. The symptoms will not be severe enough to label them as hypomania or dysthymia or depression. See, untreated, an episode of mania will last for about 4 to 6 months. So that, for example, someone is in a remote area, or he doesn't know that he's suffering from a mental disorder and he's left as such. He had an episode of mania which automatically comes down within 4 to 6 months. And untreated depression lasts longer, that lasts for around 6 to 9 months or sometimes 1 year also. So one episode will last for about 6 months in mania and around 6 to 12 months in depression. Based on that, one patient should have at least 1 episode in a year or maybe 2 to 3 episodes in 2 years. But in case of rapid cycling, there are 4 or more mood episodes, either depressive episodes or a manic episode within 1 year. Those patients with 4 or more mood episodes are labeled as rapid cyclings. Rapid cycling bipolar affective disorder, which occurs within 10 to 20% of patients and most commonly in females. And rapid cycling is very difficult to treat. Within 4 months, within 1 year, there are 4 episodes or 4 or more episodes of mood disorder. Coming to epidemiology of bipolar disorder. So lifetime prevalence of bipolar 1 is around 0.1 to 2.4%. For bipolar 2 is 0.3 to 4.8%. So cyclothymia it's around 0.5 to 6% and hypomania it's around 2.5 to 8%. So bipolar 1 affects men and women equally. Bipolar 2 and rapid cycling are more common in females. So most common age of onset is around 20 to 30 years. So bipolar affective disorder, there are other comorbidities, something like substance abuse disorder, anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder. So etiology. For any psychiatric disorder, it is a biopsychosocial model. Okay, so in biology, you have neuroanatomical changes, you have neurochemistry, wherein you have abnormalities or alterations in neurotransmitters, and neuroendocrinology, wherein there are effects of these particular disorders on the endocrine system. And certain neuroimmunological changes are also seen, especially in case of schizophrenia. So when you write a question, you have to write an epidemiology, then you have etiology. In etiology, you have to You have to include biological, psychological, and social factors. Okay, so the etiology is of bipolar disorder is not that known. So various theories have been put forward. For schizophrenia, there has been lots of research, and for depression, there has been lots of research wherein we have identified particular, very specific areas have been identified, specific tracks have been identified. There are mesolimbic system, we have mesocortical systems which are implicated in schizophrenia. But for bipolar affective disorder, the etiology is still under research. And with recent research findings, they have implicated a continuum of disorders between schizophrenia and bipolar. Okay, coming to etiology in psychological, so first we'll deal with psychosocial stressors. Yes, psychosocial stressors can occasionally precede the onset of bipolar disorders, but these are usually seen in case of early episodes rather than later ones. The other external events that precipitate a bipolar or a manic episode are antidepressants. So this is important because this we told about this even in your clinical postings. Patient present with an episode of depression, yet we don't know that whether it is an unipolar depression or a depression as a part of major depressive disorder, or we don't know if it is because if it is occurring as a part of bipolar affective disorder. In bipolar affective disorder, usually the first episode will be a depressive episode, then later episodes are manic episodes, but usually the patient presents with mania. So if at all a patient comes with an episode of depression, we don't know, we think that it is a major depressive disorder and we prescribe him antidepressants. And if that depression is a part of bipolar affective disorder, then the person will land in mania. Okay, so antidepressants can precipitate mania in a patient who is prone for bipolar affective disorder. Yes, neurotransmitters. This is bipolar affective disorder. It's something like a psychotic. It's seen in psychotic spectrum, right? As schizophrenia, dopamine is supposed to be is increased in mania and decreased in depression. The catecholamine hypothesis states that there is increased availability of norepinephrine in mania, that is increased norepinephrine concentrations in synaptic sites in mania and decreased norepinephrine in depression. And acetylcholine, it's decreased in mania and increased in depression. Coming to neuroendocrine factors, there are abnormalities in hypothalamo-pituitary adrenal axis and hypothalamo-pituitary thyroid axis. In addition to that, neuroanatomical factors, if we take functional imaging, there is reduced activation and reduced gray matter in areas associated with emotional regulation. And there is increased activation in ventral limbic brain regions generating emotional responses. There is loss of hippocampal interneurons. And coming to genetics, yes, these mood disorders run in families. So if there is one parent with mood disorder, there is 10 to 25% risk that the child may have mood disorder. If both the parents have mood disorder, the risk doubles. And the concordance rate in monozygotic twins is around 70 to 90%. In dizygotic twins, there is around 16 to 25%. So chromosome 18 and 22q have strongest evidence for linkage to bipolar disorders. In addition to this, anchorin G and alpha 1 of subunit of calcium channel, ligand gated calcium channel, the gene coding for that subunit have been thought to be involved in bipolar affective disorder. And there are two theories wherein which state apoptosis in emotional regulation networks in bipolar disorder. So there is apoptosis of programmed cellulite in emotional regulation networks. And there are minor neurological insults which occurs, that is a kindling phenomenon which occurs and that results in mania. And the psychodynamic theories, they have been most implicated in depression, but there have been less explanations for mania. or bipolar disorders, and they say mania as a defense mechanism against underlying depression. So you have biological factors, you have psychological factors, and social factors. So in biology, you have neuroanatomy, neurochemistry, and you have neuroendocrinology, and you have genetic factors. In psychological factors, you have life events, and social factors, you have again stressors, external stressors. And finally, someone who is predisposed individual and he has a stressor, he'll end up in mood disorder. Okay, so a brief note about the continuum of schizophrenia and bipolar disorders. So these days there have been research stating that schizophrenia and bipolar disorders, they are in a continuum. Okay, so in schizophrenia, there is something called depression can also be seen in schizophrenia. Right? You have schizoaffective disorder where the patient has a basic diagnosis of schizophrenia. So schizophrenia is a continuous illness. So once he is labeled as schizophrenia, he will be schizophrenic for the rest of his lifetime. But after 10 years or 15 years, he may have an episode of mania or he may have an episode of depression. So then we say it as schizoaffective disorder. Okay, so there is schizophrenia with affective symptoms, or in one episode, he might have both the symptoms of schizophrenia, like you have thought disturbances, he may have delusions, hallucinations. In addition to that, he may have affective symptoms. So there is an entity called schizoaffective disorder. So you have schizophrenia on one end, you have schizoaffective disorder in the middle, and there is bipolar affective disorder on the other end, so which is a continuum. So increased mood disturbances, they point towards mood disorders. Increased disturbances of thought and perception, they point towards schizophrenia. And again, bipolar affective disorder has more, good prognosis than schizoaffective disorder. Schizoaffective disorder has good prognosis than schizophrenia. So if we say, if you take three into consideration, schizophrenia has a worst prognosis in among these three illnesses. So again, based on mania, you have elated mania and dysphoric mania. In elated mania, the patient is very happy. He will be very excited, talkative, and hyperactive. In irritable mania, the patient is irritable. He'll be aggressive. He'll be abusive, and he'll require physical restraints and injectables. And elated mania gradually will become an irritable mania, or maybe it might be irritable mania right from the day one also. So in case of mania, the mood may range from euphoria to irritability. There is emotional lability wherein there is increased change of mood or frequent mood swings. All of a sudden, he'll be laughing like anything, and the very next moment, without any external reason, he'll be crying. That is called lability of mood. Okay. Then the speech. So because they'll be having very fast and racing thoughts, the speech is also very speed. So a speech is very fast, and it is loud, and it is very difficult to interpret because there will be lots of thoughts that are coming. So before completing one thought, the patient shifts to another thought. So the sentence will be incomplete, and he'll be starting the second sentence. So we call it as flight of ideas. And because he's elated, he's so happy. The speech what he talks is filled with jokes. There will be rhythm, rhyming. There will be clang associations, and there may be neologisms, or he may invent new words also. See, and in schizophrenia also there is formal thought disorder, wherein whatever the person in schizophrenia speaks or talks, that might be also incoherent. In case of mania also, when there is flight of ideas, when the patient moves from one idea to another idea so fast, if it record the speech of a patient with mania, that might also be incoherent, or that might be indistinguishable. How do you differentiate these between these two speeches is record a speech sample of a person with schizophrenia, record a speech sample of a person with mania, write it on a paper and read from backwards. and there will be, you can find small links or associations in case of, and it makes sense in a manic speech rather than a schizophrenic speech. Okay. So then delusions, yes, grandiose delusions or mood congruent delusions are very common in case of mania. That they'll be believing that they have extraordinary abilities, they have lots of wealth, they have lots of power, and so on. As such, judgment insight are impaired. So, and executive functions are disturbed, but orientation memory are completely intact. So they'll be taking very risk taking in day-to-day activities. So they may indulge in, theft, thief, robberies. They'll be indulging in theft, or they may be prone to accidents because they'll be indulging in racing and all. Because the risk taking appetite is more in mania. So you have bipolar 1 disorder usually starts with an episode of depression. So only 10 to 20% they have only manic episodes, and if the person will have only manic episodes, you may also label him as unipolar mania. So someone has the same as I said earlier. So the person has an episode of depression. We don't know whether it's a part of bipolar disorder or it's a major depressive disorder as such. So there are certain predictors which predict towards the bipolarity of that particular episode. That is presence of early age of onset, psychotic symptoms in depression, agitated depression, and depression of postpartum onset, bipolar history of bipolar illness in family, recurrent depression, and rapid and onset and offset of depressive episodes of less than 3 months, and irresponsiveness to antidepressants. All these predict towards bipolar affective disorder. Someone who has presented with depression, there are these risk factors that you should not read them on antidepressants, even though that is an episode of depression, because that is supposed to be a part of bipolar disorder. And the manic episode is yet to come. We don't know. After 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, a patient may land in a manic episode. So if the patient has these indicators, probably the depression is a part of bipolar affective disorder, and treat them with mood stabilizers. In this context, this postpartum onset, see, postpartum, there are lots and lots of hormonal changes. So all of a sudden, pregnancy, there is a hyperprogesterone state around the patient is there with high amounts of progesterone for about 9 months, and all of a sudden, after the placenta is removed, there is a lot of change in the hormones. So the patient may land in postpartum blues or postpartum depression. Postpartum baby blues and postpartum depression. Baby blues is a common phenomenon, or that is not pathological. That resolves as such, but postpartum depression usually seen within the puerperam. Around 42 days, the patient, if at all presents with depression, that should indicate that it is a part of bipolar disorder. And someone with postpartum depression may later on develop manic episodes, and he may land in bipolar affective disorder. So the course of bipolar affective disorder. So mostly the first episode is always depression. Okay, around 60 to 70% of the cases. So there will be a recurring course. So one episode, the patient, there will be further episodes in later on. And if it all, as already said, untreated a manic episode lasts for 3 months, and untreated depressive episode lasts for around 6 to 12 months. So as a disorder progresses, that inter-episode interval comes down. So first episode will be around at 10, 15 or 20 years. The second episode might be at around the age of 30 or 45 like that. But as the time progresses, as the disease progresses, the interval between the two episodes comes down. And after 4 or 5 episodes, the interval will be fixed. And someone who doesn't take a treatment, he might have around 10 episodes in his lifetime. And again, rapid cyclers will have around more than 4 episodes in a year. Prognosis is poor compared to a depressive disorder. So around mean, there might be around 10 episodes in one's lifetime. So on long-term follow-up, around 15% will have a good prognosis, 50% will have multiple relapses, and 30% will become chronically ill. See, once the inter-episode interval comes down, and there will be certain amount of mood disturbances will be remaining at baseline. So 30% will become chronically ill. Yes, differential diagnosis, they should be differentiated from other general medical conditions which may also present with mood symptoms. Yes, and then substance-induced mood disorder, personality disorders. You have schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia, and premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Premenstrual dysphoric disorder, there will be premenstrual exacerbation of these mood symptoms. In case of bipolar affective disorder also, there are exacerbation of these symptoms in before uh, the onset of menstrual period. Okay, but the difference between these two is that in case of premenstrual dysphoric disorder, there won't patient be symptom free in the proliferative phase. But whereas in case of bipolar affective disorder, there will be symptoms even in the proliferative phase, but with an exacerbation in the luteal phase. So, hyperthyroidism and hypercortisolemia, there are most common differential diagnoses because they may present with symptoms of mania. And antidepressants, the person who is on antidepressants, he will end up in mania. And steroids, these are most common causes of manic symptoms in patients, and these should be kept in mind when someone with bipolar affective disorder presents to you. Yes. There are other lots of substances or substances of misuse which may present with mood disorders, which include alcohol, cocaine, amphetamines, opiates, and marijuana. So cocaine and ketamine, they induce mania, and amphetamines and alcohol is most alcohol, opiates, and marijuana, they cause depression. Also, someone who has a mood disorder, as a comorbid, someone who is manic, he's so happy, so he'll consume alcohol. So substance use disorders are a comorbidity with mood disorder. Someone who is depressive, because he has dull mood, he'll try to. So the most common cause or most common explanation someone gives, I'm not feeling well, so I take alcohol. So substance use disorders, they are comorbid in mood disorders. Someone who is happy will take alcohol, someone who is sad will take alcohol. Although substance may induce a mood disorder. They are in both ways. So bipolar affective disorder, you have how to treat a case of bipolar affective disorder. We have pharmacotherapy, and psychotherapy is not so useful in case of bipolar affective disorder. So the mainstay of treatment is pharmacotherapy. And we have treatment is by mood stabilizers, because it's a mood disorder which alternates between a happier pole and a sad pole. We want to stabilize the mood in that euphoric or euthymic range, that the patient should be within the 2 standard deviations of his mood. So for that you use mood stabilizers, and most common drugs we use are lithium, valproate, carbamazepine, you have antipsychotics, and lamotrigine. Okay, there are so there are two things for treatment. So someone who presents with an episode of mania or a hypomania or a depression, and you label him as bipolar affective disorder. Okay, the first thing you need to understand that whether the patient needs hospitalization. The patient is harmful to himself, the patient is harmful to the persons around him, or he is so aggressive, so you need to hospitalize the patient. When the patient is hospitalized, he has to be uh, restrained. So if he is so aggressive, he has to be restrained. That might be a physical restraint, that is place him in a separate room, or give him, or maybe chain him or tie him up. But those things, they are unethical these days. So physical restraint is just for keeping the patient away from the other people. Then you have chemical restraint, wherein you use injectable antipsychotics or injectable benzodiazepines or in combination, so that the patient calms down and uh, he cannot be that aggressive. Okay, after this chemical restraint, then you need to treat. Treatment is for two things. You have to treat for that acute treatment, and you have to treat the patient for prophylaxis to prevent future episodes of mania or depression. For acute management, you can use a mood stabilizer as such, or you can use an antipsychotic in conjunction with a mood stabilizer, or you can use a benzodiazepine also. Because lithium, it takes around 3 weeks to start its action. So if you start lithium today, it starts acting after 3 weeks. For the meantime, you start him on antipsychotics. So either injectable antipsychotics or oral antipsychotics, or both of them, so that the uh, patient calms down, he'll sleep, he'll have his sleep, his racing thoughts come down, his mood comes down, and after 3 weeks, lithium will start its action. So it is for the management of acute episode. Once the patient completely and enters, all his symptoms come down, he can be managed, he will be discharged. Or the patient, if you think the patient can be treated at home, he can be prescribed this mood stabilizer along with an antipsychotic and can be treated at home. After 3 weeks or 4 weeks, when the patient comes back, you need to explain to the patient that he needs to take take these pills for some time. So because untreated manic episode, it lasts for around 4 to 6 months. So if you are treating an episode of mania, it means that you have to treat the patient with the same amount of dose for about 6 months. Okay. Right. So that doesn't mean once the symptoms have come down after 1 month, I am going to stop the medicines or I am tapering. No. For one episode of lithium, or for one episode of mania, you have to treat for 6 months and more. And after 6 months also, then we'll think to reduce the dose of mood stabilizer or antipsychotic. Then we'll think of prophylaxis after 6 months. And the patient presents with an episode of depression, the same. You have to treat him for about 6 to 12 months. And after that, you think of tapering the dose. So for mania, you have options like lithium and valproate. Lithium you use for euphoric mania, and valproate is a drug of choice for mixed mania or irritable mania. And if psychosis present, yeah, even if psychosis is also not there for the treatment of early or acute treatment, patient can be started in on antipsychotics. And adjunctive treatments like benzodiazepines can also be given. And yeah, if in acute mania, it's so severe mania, the patient cannot be, the patient is so aggressive, you can also start him on electroconvulsive therapy. Yeah, this is the treatment of manic episode. So for one episode of mania, we are treating for 4 months or 6 months. And then after 4 or 6 months, gradually you need to taper. If at all you have started him on an antipsychotic, taper the antipsychotic first. Then taper the mood stabilizer. And someone who uses antipsychotic for so long, he may land in rapid cycling. So after the episode of mania is over, then taper the antipsychotic. Then you have mood stabilizer, and mood stabilizer also you can gradually taper and place the patient on the minimum effective dose of lithium. For an acute phase of lithium, around 900 milligrams will be sufficient for most of the patients. Around some patients may need higher doses, but around 900 to 1200 or 1500 milligrams will be sufficient. And in maintenance, it depends, like around 450 milligrams to 600 milligrams will be sufficient in maintenance phase. Then for depressive episode, depressive bipolar affective disorder, you have an episode of depression. Lamotrigine is a drug of choice, but quetiapine can also be used as a first line, which is an antipsychotic, but that can be used as a treatment of depressive episode in bipolar affective disorder. If the patient does not respond, they can be started on SSRIs also. I mean, for the episode of depression, patient can be started on selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors also. But antidepressants can cause a switch to mania. So keep in mind, tricyclic antidepressants should be avoided because they have the highest switch rate to mania. In psychotherapy, in case of bipolar affective disorder, is basically on psychoeducation. It educates the patient about the nature of the disease, the course of the disease, and the mode of treatment options that are available. Okay, so he should understand that what if the patient is in acute phase, that he should understand that he's taking the medicines to treat that particular episode. And if the patient is in prophylactic phase, most of them ask, because I've had an episode around 2 years back or 3 years back, so can I stop medicines because I'm absolutely normal now? That again you need to explain this to the patient. Okay, so if there is one episode, he should be treated for 2 years. There are two episodes of mania or any psychotic episode, the patient should be treated for 5 years. If there are three or more episodes, the treatment is almost lifelong. But again, if the patient presents with third episode or fourth episode, you see the episode interval. First episode was around 10 years back or 15 years back, and second episode is now. You can treat him for the episode, explain to the family, and gradually taper within 1 to 2 years, because inter episode interval is so long. But if the inter episode interval is around 2 years or 5 years, it is better to continue the treatment, because stressors can precipitate episodes. Cognitive behavior therapy only to cope up with these stressors can be implicated, can be given to the patient so as to cope up with these stressors. And family focus psychoeducation again regarding the nature and management of bipolar affective disorder. Okay, this completes bipolar affective disorder. Because there is a 4 mark question, you may expect a 4 mark question also in your coming examinations. So if you write, you need to write about basic what is bipolar affective disorder, what is the epidemiology, then a basic etiology, then clinical features, then what are the classificative systems that are available, and the criteria for bipolar affective disorder. At least if you write DSM-5 or ICD-11, anything is okay. Then after clinical features, you have to write a differential diagnosis, then course and prognosis, and finally management. In management, you have to write pharmacological management and non-pharmacological management. Okay, this completes your bipolar affective disorder. So any doubts? Any doubts? So okay, then if no doubts, we'll stop our class here. Next class will be on depression.